What's up, Rockstars? Welcome to a very important video. This is focused on Mythic Games' recent update saying that to deliver Darkest Dungeon, they need more funds. But it's going to touch shipping in general, especially an update from my last video, so stay tuned for that. Thank you to my channel sponsor Into the AM. As a company that believes hard work and a great product is a proper way to conduct business, I am delighted to have them as part of the channel. They have some of the coolest graphic t-shirts around and an absolute best fit and feel that has continually exceeded my expectations. With new shirts arriving all the time and other products like boxers, hats, and even a monthly shirt club, I wholeheartedly recommend them to you. Check out the link in my description of this video for an exclusive 10% off everything they sell. As always, a huge shout out to my patrons and YouTube members. It is through their financial support that videos can be made just like this. If you appreciate the independence I have from the industry and appreciate the videos I make every single week for you guys, and they truly are for you, there's a link down in the description below. Thank you so very much. It really does add up. Out of the way, let's dive right in. Okay, so the first part is about disclaimers, really, and really just a preface to what we're going to be covering, which is their update exactly. So one thing I want to note is I went into shipping asking something, one of my questions I would ask a multitude of companies was, how much are containers for you? And I realized that I was asking that a little bit out of ignorance, and they would give me a response, which is great. And I noticed there's a range of responses, and then after posting my video before, there's a larger range of it. That's because people are mentioning different things in there. You actually see in the update from Mythic Games, they mention what they're including in that price, but some people were giving me just the raw container costs, and some people are including a lot of other things because you kind of book them all at the same time even, and that's like transportation of the container and a whole host of other things. There's various fees and whatnot. Again, you can see that in Mythic Games' is update, which is linked down below, but that's what they are including when they say container prices. But other people are including other things. So the actual raw container price is a little bit more level than you might think, and then it's just all these other services and fees added on, and what people include in it versus not including when they give you that number back. So that's kind of a clarification there I really wanted to point out. When you see somebody post something low and somebody post something high, you got to ask what's inflating that, right? Like what's added in that when they count container costs. There's nothing inherently wrong with counting that. It's just different people calling it different things, essentially. So with that out of the way, another thing I want to really focus on is reassurances. And what I mean by that is that you are going to get your game. It's a matter of when, not if. So with that out of the way, let's actually dive into their update and kind of really discuss what's going on. So the first thing that they note is that they have seen increased costs. And of course they have. They're in the industry just like everybody else. Now, it affects Mythic Games a little bit more than some other companies because Mythic Games doesn't know how to make a small game for the life of them, it seems, until hopefully this new retail thing they're doing, obviously. But, I mean, seriously, they make huge games. Joan of Arc is like an entire calyx worth of stuff, right? So when they shipped Joan of Arc 1.5, which included a reprint with all that stuff, that's a lot, right? When it comes to how many units they can put in a container, when it comes to the weight of it in the final mile, the last mile shipping, every step, when it comes to the manufacturing costs, every step of the process, they're receiving increased costs higher than many other companies just because of the scale of their games. And they have not asked for shipping up until this point, even though it's obviously cost them more. They've been paying that through their profits. And they've reached a point now where the profits don't sustain paying for that on their behalf anymore. So now they actually do have to go. They were hoping to avoid that, hoping that prices would go down, and they just never did. And then, of course, additionally, the amount of profits that they have fluctuates as they release more things, and some things are more successful than others and stuff like that. One of the things I wanted to point out, because I mentioned this in a comment as well, is I commented on them announcing this so late, right? Especially when it came to like Anastyr and the rising costs there. It's my comment, but it relates to pretty much this whole situation. One of the things that they did, and I actually asked them about this specifically. So I have met with them, I've spoken to them and like asked, and they definitely explained this, that when it was obvious that their profits wouldn't pay for this anymore, they couldn't subsidize this anymore. They couldn't pay on the behalf of everybody the increased costs now, right? to try and mitigate that, to try and like make sure that the company is sustainable, that they can, keep going and keep making games, deliver all their outstanding games and make sure those are delivered, which is why I started with the reassurance there. All of that took a multitude of meetings and scrambling and running through numbers and scenarios and stuff like that. A lot of tough decisions were made, and all of that happened kind of in that time and space. So it wasn't just we know it's more, it's maybe we can restructure, maybe we can shelve this thing we were working on and divert resources here and look for a deal here and maybe change the shipping here and changing the box here and all this kind of stuff they did to try and make this impact as little as possible and ideally go away. They weren't quite able to do that. But that's the goal. That's what took so long. And considering I've worked for a company that has hit bad waters and had to figure that out, and you get those scrambling meetings, I know exactly what that's like. So the moment they mentioned it, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, been there, done that, got the crappy t-shirt. It's not fun. It's all hands on deck, red alert, and then let's figure out how to make this work. And that's what they've been working on. So with that, Darkest Dungeon. Okay, so let's kind of talk about this. Essentially, if you are backed the English copy, and if you are getting any wave on stuff, they're opening the pledges right now for you to pay per item based off of what you got, but everybody's paying the same amount per item, and that's to distribute it so that somebody isn't suddenly hit with like like some huge amount, and then you're not like asking people to pay a few, dollars, or pennies on another one, right? It kind of distributes it out to as low a number as possible. Just like when it comes to the containers, the more units in that, the less per unit it is, right? And it's distributed across all those units. So that's the idea. The game is already made. Darkest Dungeon is made right now. Wave 1 stuff is there for English, and it is in a warehouse. It'll be shipped off the moment people are, kind of paying that extra bit, and they can safely do that. So the number includes a whole host of factors, right? But essentially it makes them be able to continue and do what they need to do as a business so that everybody gets their games. That's the whole goal. That line is August 1st. After August 1st, that's like the first shipment that's going out. With that shipment, they're going to have some copies to fill in the containers, right? Because you pay for the container whether you're going to use it all or not. So essentially they're optimizing that, and then that stock will be on their store. However, it will not be available until the first backers get their copies, the people who paid by August 1st. Now, the reason that's the case, right? Because I put some thought into this, and I chatted with them about it, and that is, first of all, they're going to be charged way more, like $200 as opposed to $150. That's including your shipping. That's including your increase in cost. So they're paying more for it than you did on Kickstarter. But additionally, it actually lowers the per cost because now there are more games in those containers, right? So it's a bigger pool to distribute because the people that are going to buy that on the web store have to pay their portion just like you had to pay your portion. So it's lowering the cost for everybody. It's more efficient, and it's a way for them to continue to gain funds and ideally continue to get more games out. Now, the people who can't pay, or the people who are Wave 2 only, or non-English copies, stuff like that, they are going to be in that warehouse that is your game. They made it, you bought it, and ship it out as they can, either by asking for more, or ideally if costs do go down, they continue to get the profits and can sustain themselves as a company and keep doing that and be a healthy company, they will get those games out. Either way, it's coming. It's just a matter of when. If you want it as soon as possible, you need to pay the difference by August 1st. This is the exact same thing with like Oathsworn and kind of a same kind of crap this suddenly happened thing, right? So they were obviously hoping that Anastyr would be able to provide the profits for them to be able to pay for that, but they're not willing to dip into other campaigns' budgets to do that. Then you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's not what they want to do. It's not the business they want to operate, and I commend them for that. They need to fund Darkest Dungeon with Darkest Dungeon instead of robbing the Anastyr backers to do that. And then, sorry, Anastyr backers, you don't get your game. That's not how you run a business, not how you run an effective one, and they're definitely trying to do that. So it's a bad situation. Granted, nobody wants to do this. It's crappy, and I can understand the frustration. At this point now, if you backed Oathsworn, you had to pay extra. If you backed Sheol, you had to pay extra. If you backed this one, you had to pay extra. Ludus Madness Studio did that a while back, actually. I mean, at this point, we've seen this so much. It really sucks. And I was surprised looking back because I got Solomon Kane during the pandemic. I got Joan of Arc 1.5 during the pandemic. I got Super Fantasy Brawl Round 2 during the pandemic. They kept delivering these huge boxes, right? Even the Wave 2 of Solomon Kane was multiple boxes. These massive games they were shipping and not charging us a dime. Looking back, I wish they had done a little bit more back then and actually, instead of trying to subsidize it. But I mean, they have these profits as a company. They're doing well. They're going to make right by the backers and not even charge them extra for those, especially those 3 campaigns. Those are some big ones they delivered at that time. So, anyway, there's a link down below. You can obviously look at more. I just want to kind of explain the situation, explain kind of the reasoning, some updates around stuff like container prices and quotes that you hear and numbers that you hear around there, all that jazz, and it really explain where Mythic has been in the past with delivering these and, having to cover those costs. And then, of course, also cover the fact that you have to, you got to pay more. So that's unfortunate. Now, are there any other numbers involved here? I don't know. I don't know what they're showing. The Red Hook, so the actual video game company is donating money. Mythic Games is matching 50% of it. So what they're charging is lessened. Again, this is just like what Shadowborn Games did with Oathsworn, putting in, their own 200,000 or whatever. Mythic Games putting a lot more to that actually to get this out. So that, you guys can get your game. I'm personally excited for the game. It's a super big bummer that we have to pay more. But I mean, it's hard times. And if we want Mythic Games to continue to make games that you are backing, if you're watching this for Darkest Dungeons because you bought their game, then, we need to kind of chip in there, which is, it is what it is at this point. It's the world we're in. And then, of course, they're, charging more, extra. Now, are other companies able to do it for less? Yes. But there's a whole host of, differences in that. Whether or not they're pricing their game more upfront to cover that cost, or whether they're actually just saying this is shipping, so we're charging it in shipping. Either way, you're kind of paying the same amount. Obviously, upfront is typically a bit more, but then we get the sticker price shock, when it's a high number. So pros and cons to everything. I would love to discuss this with you guys. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on this, and I can see if I can't provide more insight from the conversations I've had, especially since my last video, or whether it's been through email or actually just chatting with people. I've spent a couple hours now talking to different developers and kind of learning what I can. So if I can help at all, I would be glad to do so. And let me know, and I'll even ask them about it if I can relay some questions. Just communicate that. So with that out of the way, that's it. That's all I had, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Sorry for the bad news. And I'll talk to you guys again very, very soon.